Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Happy Hour podcast. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, we are going to tackle all things week 12 of the National Football League. We obviously have a big slate ahead. We are coming to you on a Thursday. We're going to touch a little bit on the Thanksgiving games, but for those of you listening past Thanksgiving, we also are going to tackle week 12 Sunday and Monday games as well. We're just going to kind of divvy it up between both slates of games. As always, I am joined by my partner here, Mr. Matthew Fox. How are you?
Doing pretty good. You know, I have flooring in my entire house. They have like 1 day worth of work left to do, which sadly has not yet happened this week, but I'm hopeful that it's close to done. You can see like I actually have some furniture back into this office. You know, you don't hear them like tearing our house apart. We have carpet on the stairs. It feels like the long road is coming to an end, just as yours begins.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've got some. So if you hear any noise in the background this week, it's on my side this time. I got some housework going on right now, but it hasn't been too loud, so I'm hoping that it's not too crazy. But obviously, I might mute my mic in between not having a conversation. But folks, like we do every week on the show, Matthew Fox is going to go over some of his favorite games of the week. I'm going to go over my favorite bets of the week. And then, of course, we'll tie it up with our starts and sits for the week, where Matthew Fox focuses on the world of fantasy football. And I kind of focus in a little bit on DFS with the curve of fantasy football in there as well. I'm going to give you guys a few plays in the world of Thanksgiving. Make sure if you're listening to the show right now to get those in, because these lines fluctuate a lot. And then on top of that, I'm going to give you my picks for Sunday, which if you're listening today, Thursday, Friday, make sure to try to get these in as soon as you can, because these lines do move from the time that we talk about them till kickoff. These lines can move, and of course, you want to try to get as much as you can in. So it'll be interesting to see how this week's picks land out. Last week's show, I had another pretty I'm on a roll right now. I cannot lie. I'm on a roll. 3-1 last week with my picks. I think I've only lost like one game in every week for like 3 or 4 weeks straight. I have been on a little bit of a roll. I'm pretty excited about it across all of fantasy. You can also follow my bets. I can't find a way to put all of my bets on BetStamp because BetStamp doesn't have certain bets. But as it sits right now for the season, I am 45-23 of the bets that I could place on their site, which is pretty good if you ask me. But enough tooting my own horn, and let's get right into your games of the week, Mr. Fox.
Yeah, and I'm going to start. So, you know, Thanksgiving, a lot to be thankful for in that we get 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. So I'm going to give you, I think, my Thanksgiving Day game pick, early window, late window Sunday, and then we'll look at Sunday night. And honestly, the saddest game of the week might be the Monday Night Football matchup, doing this no favors in prime time. But there are 3 games on Thanksgiving Day. All 6 teams come into Thanksgiving having lost the week before. So they all have something to prove. The first game of the day is by far the worst. The one that the afternoon game in Dallas and the night game in New Orleans both have some potential, but I'm going to go with Dallas. The Raiders have lost 3 straight. They were once atop the AFC West. Now they're tied for last place. They're quickly falling out of the playoff race. The Dallas Cowboys, meanwhile, have lost 2 of 3. They're beat up a little bit, but they always play well at home on Thanksgiving Day. I think this is a pivotal matchup for both teams, and I'm curious to see how they respond. Plus, you know, love me some Cowboys. So that is the game I'm going to highlight on Thanksgiving Day, and that's usually the most prime window when people are like rolling away from the table looking for some place to lay down and recover before they have 7 different kinds of pie. The early window game Sunday has some incredible matchups. I'll have my Friday 5 that comes out on Friday. I didn't even include the Sunday night game this week because there are so many good early and late games. But the best of the early window games is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 7-3 at the Indianapolis Colts 6-5. This is strength on strength. Jonathan Taylor is the number 1 running back in fantasy football through 11 weeks. Tampa Bay has an incredible defensive front, and they have been very stout against the run. We saw what they did to Saquon Barkley on Monday night. Both these teams come in pretty good shape. The Colts are red hot. The Buccaneers look like they're rounding into form, getting ready to make a playoff run. This has huge playoff implications, and I am pumped to see what Jonathan Taylor does against that defense. That's going to be a huge matchup. The late window game, the Los Angeles Rams lost 2 in a row before going into the bye. They come off the bye and they go to Green Bay. They're 7-3. The Packers are 8-3. This is 2 teams that have very big playoff aspirations. Should be a great matchup between Matthew Stafford, who's played the Packers a ton of times when he was with the Lions, and Aaron Rodgers. Odell Beckham Jr. has had a couple of weeks to work into that offense. No more Robert Woods, so they're going to need him. Can that Rams defense round back into shape with the addition of Von Miller alongside Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey? And for the Packers, they're not going to have Aaron Jones again, it looks like. So what can we get from A.J. Dillon? Last week, huge week for MVS. Can Rodgers get those receivers going? I think this has the potential to be a really fun matchup. There are only 3 late window games on Sunday, and all 3 of them are crucial playoff matchups. The other ones are the Chargers at the Broncos and the Vikings at the 49ers. So a lot of intrigue Sunday afternoon, even though we only have a couple games. The Sunday night game, Cleveland Browns 6-5. Baltimore Ravens are 7-3. The Ravens managed to get a win last week with Tyler Huntley at center or at quarterback. Looks like Lamar Jackson should be back. I don't know what to make of that backfield. It looks like a resurgence of Devonta Freeman, if by resurgence you mean a borderline RB3. The Browns have looked really bad, especially in that passing game. Baker Mayfield is in a tough stretch. I love Nick Chubb, but I don't know what to expect. Last year, the primetime game between the Browns and the Ravens was one of the most iconic games of the 2020 season. Maybe we get that. I think we're going to see something more in the 20s here. And then the Monday night game, honestly, if you need to do some Cyber Monday shopping, if you want to roll out and see a good movie, after you've listened to the Music City Drive-In with 2 incredible co-hosts that airs this coming weekend, you could skip it because it's the 3-7 anemic Seahawks. The most exciting thing about the Seahawks is that they almost made their coach cry in a post-game press conference because he realized how bad of a job he's doing. Russell Wilson looks like he's already mentally checked out on the season. And then they're playing Washington. Washington's an enigma. Their defense has been a little bit better without Chase Young, which almost defies expectation. They're 4-6. It's potential they could claw back into the NFC playoff race. I mean, we saw them do the same thing last year. I tend to think that, Ricky may not agree, but that the Eagles are actually in a better position to be the second team out of the NFC East into the playoffs. I think they're going to beat the Giants this week and go to 6-6. But Washington has something to play for. The Seahawks, if they lose this game, they're pretty well out of it. They're 1-4 at home. They have looked dreadful. I think this could be a horrific Monday night game. So, again, if you have other Monday plans, no one's going to blame you for sitting this one out.
Yeah, it's a really strong week for games. It really is. I don't think the games tomorrow here on Thanksgiving are going to be all that grand. I'm not looking forward to the Red Rifle taking on Goff or Tim Boyle. I don't care who.
It does look like Goff is tracking to play, which, yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So I don't even really know where to go with that because I'm not sure I necessarily love that matchup for these guys. But for my bets for the week, I do like the Bears tomorrow night. It is the Lions, and I understand that maybe the Lions could win. But you know what? I don't know. I believe in Andy Dalton winning this football game. Maybe a little Matt Nagy farewell for him as it is presumed that he is going to potentially be fired after this game. It's his last coach game of presumably his NFL career, unless the Jets randomly hire him in like 5 years because, I don't know, Adam Gase. But I do like the Bears -3. The Lions have lost each of their last 8 games at Ford Field. And the road team has covered the spread in 6 straight. I like the Raiders +7. I don't think the Raiders win this football game, but I don't think it's going to be as a blowout or anything like this. This 7-point line is a lot of points, and especially considering Dallas is already going to be out without Cooper, and they might be without Lamb. If that's the case, I understand they have weapons, and I understand they have the offense. It could rely heavier on that run game, and I do think that it's possible, but the secondary and the defense has not been great for Dallas this year. And I think Carr can kind of expose that with the weapons they do have with the Raiders. Also, another one that I really like, this is crazy to me. The Bills line opened at -3 for the Bills. It is now up to -6.5. It's up 3.5 more points from the first time I saw the line. And I actually bet the line at -3, and that's the bet that I was going to go with. But with the bet no longer being there, I do believe that the Bills are going to win this football game. And I do believe that it's more than likely going to be the type of game where they blow them out. But, however, I will say this, that I'm going to change my bet to the Bills -1 in the first quarter. Okay, so that means they have to win the first quarter by just a point. And I like that because it's +100. Now, as far as the other bets go, I do like the Raiders as well, +3.5 in the first quarter. I don't think that they're going to lose that first quarter, and I like the +3.5. It gives us a little bit of points and within the field goal as well. Now, for Sunday, I'm going to shock the world here with one of my Sunday picks. I love the Tennessee Titans +7. I don't understand. Look, I understand they're coming off of a loss, an embarrassing loss that I predicted on this podcast last week. But other than that,
damn you, Tyrod Taylor.
Love me some Tyrod, baby. Love me some Tyrod. But the Titans +7, the Patriots are good. And they're playing like a well-oiled machine, but I just don't believe this team should be 7-point favorites. They're not. They're 6.5. I'm buying a half a point here, but I do not believe that this team is that good to be this big of a favorite, even without Henry, even without Julio, and the whole team that's hurt over here in Tennessee. But +7, give me the Titans. And they say I don't like the Titans on this podcast. They say I don't.
Well, you still don't.
I still think Tannehill sucks, but that's aside the point. And 4 interceptions against the Texans will do that to you. Another thing that I just can't quit. I can't quit this team. I don't know why. Yes, I'm betting on the Panthers again. And yes, they burnt me last week, and I don't even know how. But I'm betting on the money line. I'm not betting the spread. It's -2, but the money line's at -130. I like it a whole lot. Also, another thing that I like, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend. Okay, they're +4.5 on the road, and I know that is a little bit rough. Okay, and I do think the Bengals are good. However, I love the +4.5 because I think that this is a field goal game. No matter what, it's a field goal game. So I'm getting a 1.5 over there. Now, factor this in for a second here, guys. That money line is +175. I'm going to sprinkle. I'm not telling you to bet it. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on that money line of the Steelers. But I like the Steelers +4.5. And another bet that I like in that game, the Steelers over 2.5 touchdowns. I like that bet a whole lot. I do think that they can score that 3 touchdowns. And right now, as of this moment, you're getting it +140 for them to score 3 touchdowns in that game. That Bengals defense is improved, but getting 3 touchdowns, that's not too many against this team that I think that this could be. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, but I do think that it's going to be, like I said, you're looking at 24-21 game either way, right? You know what I mean? Whoever wins the game, I think we're looking at that 3-point window of one of these teams winning, which obviously favors our +4.5 and then also favors that over 2.5 touchdowns. So to recap real quick, Bears -3, Raiders +7. I like the Bills in the first quarter -1, the Raiders +3.5 in the first quarter. And then for the Sunday slate, I like the Titans +7, Panthers money line, Steelers over 2.5 touchdowns, and Steelers +4.5. So that's a lot of bets. I went a little crazy this week just because of the Thanksgiving games, but that's 8 bets for you this week. So that's the most I've given out on this show. So probably be one of those weeks where I go 2-6 or something like that, just because I decided to go a little bit crazy and give you guys a lot more bets than I normally do. With that being said, we're going to transition over to our start and sit segment of the show, where Matthew Fox is going to highlight some guys that you should start this week and some guys that we should sit in the world of fantasy football. And like I said, I've got some plays in the world of DFS that I like within this start sit segment. Matthew Fox, I'll let you kick it off with your starts for the week.
Yeah, so my first start, I'm going with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Cousins has been going pretty strong. When I thought the Vikings were going to play themselves out of the playoff race, they came back. They beat the Chargers in Los Angeles. They beat the Packers last week. Cousins actually outdueled Aaron Rodgers. Playing the 49ers this week, two teams that are red hot, both got back to 5-5. I think this is going to be a fun offensive game, so I like Captain Kirk as a low-end QB1 start. I am starting Jonathan Taylor this week. I know the Tampa Bay defense is front is strong. We thought Buffalo's defensive front would be strong, and Jonathan Taylor went for 200 total yards and 5 touchdowns. I think he can still be in the RB1 range, but at worst case, I think he ends up as an RB2. I'm keeping him in my lineup. I believe in him. He is going great guns, and Frank Reich finally remembered that he's part of the team. My wide receiver start is Jalen Waddle. He has good chemistry with Tua. He seems to be the most consistently targeted receiver. That offense is doing a little better. The defense is doing better. I actually picked the Dolphins to upset Carolina. My full picks will come out tomorrow, but I picked the Dolphins over Carolina. I just don't like the energy for the Panthers. I think they're going to fade away a little bit down the stretch here. And the Dolphins defense, again, is rounding into shape. My tight end start is Dalton Schultz. I don't think CeeDee Lamb plays. He's technically questionable, but he was in the non-contact jersey even yesterday. We haven't gotten the practice reports today, but I think Dallas is thinking long-term, and I don't know that they need Cooper and Lamb necessarily to beat the Raiders the way the Raiders are playing. I think you're going to get a good game from Gallup. I think you're going to get plenty of Zeke and Tony Pollard, but Dalton Schultz has had good chemistry with Dak all season long. I think they will lean on him more with both those receivers out, and he will have a good Thanksgiving Day at home.
Yeah, I like Wilson this week as well. I like Cedric Wilson as a sneaky little play if Lamb is 100% out, because they're going to have to throw the ball to something. And I think that this could still be a very much high-scoring game. You know what I mean? Dallas's defense is playing decent, but they're not playing that great. You know what I mean? So, and I do think that the Raiders can score points. So if you're looking for a desperate start tomorrow, or you're out a Lamb, or you're out a Cooper, you're out one of these guys that's hurt, this is definitely kind of the week. For me, this starts this week. I like Mac Jones against Tennessee. He's only 5,400 on DraftKings. Tennessee's defense is not good. Surprisingly, you can pass on this defense, like we've said all along. Obviously, they didn't pass that well this past week, but the game was wet. But Tyrod Taylor still found the end zone twice. Running back plays, I like Tevin Coleman versus the Texans. He's only $4,000 this week, and he's going to get the starter share of the load because Michael Carter is out now 4 to 6 weeks, which is depressing because I love me some Michael Carter.
Johnson.
I mean, hey, it might be a thing, but you know what? I'm buying Coleman at $4,000 right now. Chris Godwin versus the Colts, only $7,000, which I understand that's a lot of money, but this week I love him. I love this game a lot. I lean that it's going to be close, but in my head, I think that this might be a little bit farther apart than what we are going to expect to see. I think the Colts are kind of due, and I think that the defense for the Bucs can really draw some stuff up where they kind of throw Wentz off of his game, and he throws a pair of interceptions, which if you're going to throw a pair of interceptions, it's not against the Bucs. You can't do that. You're not going to win football games against this team by throwing interceptions. So I like Godwin this week as a smash play. And then my tight end play for the week is Evan Ingram at 3,800. The targets have been there. The offense has kind of been lackluster, but maybe we see something different from this offense this week with Jason Garrett gone. I don't know if we will or not, but at 3,800, you really don't need a whole lot out of him to pay off that price. So those are the guys that I like. Transitioning into my sits for the week, I've got a Carson Wentz on my sit this week. Obviously, I understand if some of you guys are playing in certain leagues where you highlight guys that you might need, and you might need to start Wentz this week. You might be in the 2-quarterback league, but if there's other options, I say do it. I just don't believe that he's going to have a good enough game to justify his actions. And especially if you're in the Scott Fish Bowl, you might not want to start him this week because of all those negative points. Prescott got me -5 points last week. Thanks, Dak. And I still managed to win somehow. I don't know how I did, but I still
even in non-Scott Fish Bowl scoring, I think Dak got like less than 2 points.
Exactly. And then as far as my sits goes, and again, reminder, this is for DFS purposes because obviously you're probably going to start these guys regardless in fantasy football. But I don't like Dalvin Cook at his price versus the 49ers, and I don't like Adam Thielen at his price versus the 49ers. I think that they could have decent games, but just paying up, I think there's other options that you can buy at these specific price tags. So I don't like either one of those guys this week. And that's my starts and sits in the world of DFS. What you got for your sits this week, Mr. Fox?
Yeah, so my sit at quarterback is Russell Wilson. He has looked dreadful coming back. I know the temptation would be, well, he'll get right. Playing Washington. Washington's defense has been better the last 2 weeks. Washington's defense held down a pretty hot Tom Brady. They got a win last week. Russell Wilson looks totally out of sync. I don't know if it's the finger or if he's just giving his team the floppy finger as they round out this season, but I do not have any confidence. I have him all the way at QB 16. Maybe you're playing him in super flex, but if you're in a one quarterback league, you probably have better options. The next two are actually groups for me. My running back sit is the Titans running backs. Just about the time I thought, well, maybe Deonta Foreman is interesting. They gave Adrian Peterson the bulk of the carries. He had the bulk of the yardage, and then they just outright released him. So it could be Deonta Foreman, could be Dontrell Hilliard, could be Jeremy McNichols. I will never know because none of them are touching my lineup. My wide receiver sit is the New York Giants wide receiver group. I am curious to see what happens with Freddie Kitchens coming in and taking over the play calling duties in New York. He ran a very up-tempo scheme when he stepped into a similar situation a few years ago with the Cleveland Browns. That was actually Baker's rookie season, probably the best season we've seen from him. Maybe he can do something with Daniel Jones, but they have Sterling Shepard tracking to be back, Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, Darius Slayton. Somebody's going to have a decent game. Somebody's going to have a dreadful game. A couple people probably have marginal games. Good luck picking which one. I'm just staying away from that group until we can see something in the neighborhood of a trend. I love Kenny Galladay's talent, but honestly, the dude had one catch for 12 yards last week. I'm not convinced he's getting the volume. Slayton can't seem to hold on to the ball. Shepard can't stay on the field, and they don't know what the hell to do with Kadarius Toney. So until we get some clarity, I'm staying away. And then my tight end sit is Cole Kmet. I liked what he was doing with Justin Fields before they went on the bye. Last week when Andy Dalton transitioned in, he wasn't really a big part of the game plan. I personally think that Bears-Lions game is going to be dreadful and low scoring, even with Dalton. I think Dalton's much more likely to use his running backs and Darnell Mooney. It's also possible Allen Robinson plays tomorrow. So they're going to go more to receivers. I mean, last week he used Marquise Goodwin as a receiver out there to catch a touchdown. So I'm staying away from Cole Kmet. I have him as a mid-tier tight end too, and that's really just not good enough in most leagues to warrant playing him.
Yeah, this season has been crazy, right? You know what I mean? Like it's been a strange season as a collective whole. So it's been kind of interesting trying to find certain things to try to take advantage of and get ahead of the game, if you know what I mean. So it's definitely kind of hard to see kind of what's ahead and what we're going to plan for this week. But with that being said, hang on a second. We got one comment in the comment section. Sorry. All right. Set my lineup as of right now. Wide receiver 1, Evans, Gallup, Mooney. Bench, I have Ayuk, Josh Jacobs available.
So I actually probably would play Ayuk over Darnell Mooney because the 49ers passing game has been going great guns, and we saw the Vikings get torched. Ayuk actually led the team in targets last week. They're using Samuel in a hybrid role, but Samuel, Ayuk, and Kittle all had touchdowns last week. I like that better. The other thing I would watch if you're considering playing Darnell Mooney is he popped up on the injury report with a gimpy ankle. He's probably going to play, but that would be, since that game's early tomorrow morning and people will probably have other things going on, you need to keep an eye on that if you have them in there, because the worst thing would be to get a surprise inactive and to eat a 0 on Thursday morning starting out the week. So I would probably flip Ayuk and Mooney anyway. But if you are going to play Mooney, that's something to watch out for.
Absolutely. All right. So with that being said, I also don't really love the idea of starting off my week on Thursday with 3 games and then just staring at those duds for the entire weekend.
When it used to be Calvin Johnson on Thanksgiving, and were those some great, like you have that Megatron game where he catches 7 balls for 115 yards and 3 touchdowns, and you roll out of the first game on Thursday. But I do know what you're talking about. Last year I played a lot of Cowboys on Thanksgiving Day, and I felt sadness.
Yeah, much sadness. Much sadness. All right, so with that being said, we're going to transition over to our favorite segment each and every week, which, again, all of our segments are our favorite. But with that being said, we're going to switch over to the movie corner where we talk about some movie recommendations for the week, what we think you should check out in theaters, what you should check out at home. There's several recommendations. I like to start off with the one starting off with Netflix. I highly recommend checking out the Kevin Hart New Show True Story. I will admit right off the top that I am a Kevin Hart fan. I love Kevin Hart. I think that he's hilarious. I love all of his work. I think his stand-ups are classic, and a lot of his comedy works for me. And I know it doesn't work for everybody, which it is what it is. But for me, True Story was something different from him. But I think what really kind of stood out was the chemistry that him and Wesley Snipes had in the entire show. I watched all 7 episodes. I think it was like last week, and I binged them all. Like, it was that good. Like, to me, it was different to see from him. And I know he's trying to prove a point with, yes, I can act seriously, which it's true. I mean, if you've seen some of it, I loved him in Fatherhood, and I thought he was very lighthearted in the movie he did with Bryan Cranston. I'm trying to remember the name of that movie off the top of my head, and I can't think of it.
Yeah, that was a remake of a French film, actually.
Whatever that was, look back. But yeah, I enjoyed him in that. He was a little still lighthearted in this, but this one it has some laughs, but overall, it's a very seriously toned movie, our TV show, and I really, really can't recommend it enough. I loved it a whole lot, and I think that there's a lot of good moments. The supporting cast is really good as well. Theo Ross, who I loved from Sons of Anarchy, is in it as well. Another recommendation on Netflix, Bruised. We were talking about this before you got on the air. You haven't finished it quite, I don't think, but it's a watchable movie, right? You know what I mean? It's not a groundbreaking movie, but if you're an average everyday movie lover or movie person, you just want to turn on a movie that's easy to watch, this is the type of movie for you. What you got? Oh, and of course, in theaters starting yesterday probably, because of the early showings, was House of Gucci. We're going to be doing a special Music City Drive-In podcast focused around House of Gucci, which you'll be able to check out as of probably Friday morning. So, Fox, what you got on the recommendation sheet this week?
Yeah, and Hawkeye launches today on Disney Plus. I know you enjoyed the pilot episode. It's always good to get some MCU stuff back in there. But the big movie last week that should be probably number 1 still at the box office this week is Ghostbusters Afterlife. If you are a fan of the Ghostbusters franchise, I highly recommend checking this out. This is actually my favorite of the 4 Ghostbusters movies we've gotten theatrically. I thought it was just a lovingly nostalgic blast. I love the new characters. Jason Reitman is a filmmaker who I really, really dearly love his early stuff. His first 3 films are right up there for me. Up in the Air is one of my favorite films of all time. I thought he did a beautiful job of creating characters, a great blend of humor and comedy. I had a blast watching this movie, and I think it's going to be a great one to go. It's especially, this is a time where you spend a lot of time with family, and if you're going as families, I think that's worth checking out.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it yet. I was supposed to go see it Friday. Some stuff popped up, so I'm not the biggest Ghostbuster person in the world, and it's not that there's nothing wrong with the movies. I've always kind of leaned elsewhere with some movies, and I'm kind of like whatever on them. I do anticipate finally seeing it. It's between that one and I still haven't seen No Time to Die yet, but I think I just haven't seen that because it's like 9 hours long. But that's the reason why I haven't seen
both
that.
Those are my top 10 currently for the year. No Time to Die. If you're a James Bond fan, I really enjoyed that. Another one that both that and Ghostbusters probably caught me a little off guard with the emotional response that they drew out. There's some real family stuff even in No Time to Die, and it's kind of a beautiful send off for Daniel Craig's Bond. And Ghostbusters kind of a beautiful, they dedicated it to Harold Ramis, who co-wrote the original, was a producer, was Egon. He passed away in 2014. Both of those have some real emotional beats that worked for me.
I feel you. I love Daniel Craig as Bond. I'm struggling with the whole, how long the movie is. You know
Spare
what I mean?
3 hours for a spy thriller.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just,
it's longer than House of Gucci.
Exactly. I mean, in House of Gucci, you feel every bit of that length of that movie, even though
especially when you're old AF like me and you go to a 7:30 p.m. showing, even though you typically are in bed at 8:45 every night.
Exactly.
I was like Job from Arrested Development. I've made a horrible mistake.
Exactly. These movies, like some of these movies, like they could use some cut down. I mean,
Belfast, a beautiful 97 minutes.
oh my God. I loved Belfast so much. And which is another recommendation I can throw out there. If you have not checked out King Richard, I can't recommend that movie enough. I absolutely adore that movie. I rewatched it this weekend, and I really, really, really love it. Will Smith gives one of my. I had Denzel in my mind because what I was going to say is Will Smith gives one of my favorite performances of the year, and he's probably going to win the Oscar. But Denzel deserves it for his performance in Tragedy of Macbeth. But my brain is mush, guys. My brain is mush. So yeah, I don't even really know what to follow that up with because that was just embarrassing. But I love Denzel, though. I think Denzel is one of the greatest actors of all time. So.
I liked King Richard too. My movie review roundup will come out a little bit later this afternoon. I liked that one. I gave it 3.5.
Yeah, I really like it. It's currently sitting in my top 10. I think it's sitting in my top 10. I just really love the story a whole lot, and I think that the emotional weight that it had in the film was beautiful. Yeah, it's number 10 right now. I don't know how long it'll be there because obviously next Tuesday I'm seeing Don't Look Up, which will possibly maybe enter my top 10. Who knows? I love Adam McKay. I love his work, and I don't care. I like Vice. So anybody that hated it, oh well. I like Vice, and I also loved The Big Short. So two very phenomenal movies. Big Short is light years better, obviously, on the grand scheme of things. Big Short was one of the best movies that came out that year. But enough with the rambling. We appreciate you checking out the podcast. If you listen, we thank you so much each week for listening to the show. You can follow Matthew Fox on Twitter at Nighthawk7734. Give myself a follow at Ricky Valero _. Check out the other shows on the Drive-In Podcast Network, including the Uncut Podcast, where they sit down and talk to wrestlers across the world. You can also check out the Film Optics Podcast, the Now Showing Podcast, as well as the 50 Years of Music, which is hands down one of my favorite podcasts to listen to each and every week. Those guys are hilarious. I just feel like their show should be like, they should have been like way past the Drive-In Podcast Network like a year ago. Like these guys are so good at what they do, and I think they're funny, they're charming, and I just love their show so much. But with that being said, head on over to the MusicCityDrivein.com to check out all the articles from our sports writing team that are being pumped out every week. And then, of course, you can check out the 1.3 million articles that Matthew Fox and I are pumping out each week as well. So
we're on the daily writing plan anyway.
Exactly. So thank you guys for listening to the show. And make sure to tune in to the special episode of the Music City Drive-In this week as Matthew Fox and I discuss our love or hate for the House of Gucci.